Hi, so I did a sort of a patina look on the side of this desk using metallic paints. I used Modern Masters Teal and the brass metallic paints, and then I used a sea sponge and I sort of dabbed it on to create this textured look. I also sealed it beforehand. The reason I do is that it's easier to seal the bottom, or to seal it first before applying the stencil, so that you make sure it's protected, and then I'll seal again afterwards. But it never hurts to seal twice. I'm using the Diamond Grunge 3D stencil from Redesign with Prima. It is a, it's called a 3D stencil because it's thicker than the typical stencil, so that'll give you more of a raised detailing. I picked this one because it's got that rustic sort of look that I'm going for. Right, so I'm going to put it on the surface. I sprayed a little bit of adhesive on the back of it. It's the 3M adhesive, just to make it stick on a little bit, but I'm still going to tape it up as the stencil is fairly heavy just because it's thicker. So I want to make sure it doesn't fall down while I'm trying to do this. That would not be good. I don't want it to fall off. To tape it up. Do one more just in case. I'm just using painter's tape to do this. Oh, okay, don't want to get it on the detail here. So, okay. And I'm using the Redesign with Prima's 3D stencil fiber paste. This is the fiber paste. It is a thick textured paste that dries extremely hard and durable. Looks like that. Comes in white. You can mix some paint in it to color it if you'd like, or mica powder, but you can also paint over it once it's dry too. So a few options. I like the white. It's what I'm going for, so I'm actually going to leave it white and just add some dark wax over it to give it a more of an aged look again. So the fiber is fairly thick, you can see. Makes it easy to apply. So just take some and just scrape it on the surface. Don't want it on too thick because it's just wasteful. So I'm just scraping it off, and I'm making sure it's in the inside of the grooves and the cutout details of this. I'm just using a plastic spatula. You can get these in the hardware store. Fairly cheap. You just kind of scrape it on there. Really easy to use. Scraping it on. top area too. And do it from edge to edge. You can use various texture pastes if you want for the raised stenciling. I've used various ones. Prima Marketing has quite a few texture pastes that have different effects too. There's a texture paste like this one, just not in an as big container. It's called plaster paste and it works similar. Then there's the texture pastes that crackle too, and I've used those. And it gives it a cool effect with the crackling, though some of it does fall off. So just be aware of that, but if you're going for that effect, it's perfect. I've also made a thick paste out of paint using salt wash. Salt wash is a powder thickener, so you just mix it with the paint until you get the consistency that you want. You want it to be like a icing-like consistency so that it's not runny, but it also holds the shape without being too thick so that it's hard to smooth it on like what I'm doing now. And I can use a slightly bigger one or a trowel, but because of the size of the container, I can't use too large of a one to scoop it. But I can smear it on. So I think I brought my larger one too, so I'll do that. But let me just smear some of this on the surface and get it a bit everywhere so that when I smooth it out, we'll get into all the areas that I want. So, okay. So I have the larger one too, and it does smooth it on more quickly. Let's do that. I'm just kind of scraping it too. I don't want too much of it on my stencil as it makes it harder to clean when I'm done. And it's just not needed, so I don't want to waste the stencil paste. Either. So just scraping it on smooth as I can. And you can see if it isn't in completely too. And because this is kind of grungy, or that's what I'm trying to do, it doesn't matter as much to me to get it in exactly smooth. So you can see how if you continue scraping, you can get it in further. without wasting too much of this paste. There are also these pastes called icing paste, and it's a metallic paste that I've used too with these stencils, and it looks really pretty too when you use those. Any sort of thick paste will work. So just depending on the style you are going for and what color you want. There's a variety of things you can use. So I'm just scraping it in. Okay. Almost done. And then I'll take this off. We'll give it a cool effect. It takes a few hours for this to dry. Because the stencil is a bit thicker, it will take slightly longer than if you used a regular stencil, which you can. You can use a regular stencil to do this too. With the redesigns, special 3D ones, they're more durable. Okay, so you can see it's pretty good. I'm just gonna. Okay, it's a bit thick up here, so I'll just scrape it off a little bit. Right here. Not too thick because it'll take forever to dry. Alright, so I'm going to scrape a little bit of excess off. Just put it back in the container. Alright. That looks good. Right, I'm going to take this off now. The paste kind of holds it in too, so it's not going to drop out on me. Going to peel it off. And there is the stencil. Oops. Sorry, trying to prop this so I don't get it dirty, but at the same time. So you can see it's a really cool effect, and the edges do prick up slightly because as you're pulling it off, it is also pulling the paste a bit. So when it is starting to, don't do it right now because it'll just get sticky on your hands if you try to pat it down a little bit. So as it's drying, when it gets a little bit drier, so that when you touch it, it's not sticking to your fingers, you can push down the edges a bit so that they're not this little spiky areas like that, and that will help you with not having to sand as much once it's completely dry if you want to smooth it out even further. So it just saves a little bit of time too, and if you wanted to sand, it makes it easier as well to get it smoother. So that is the Redesign with Prima Diamond Grunge stencil. I used the 3D stencil fiber paste and just these plastic little spatulas you can get at the hardware store. And I will wait for this to dry a bit. I'm going to wait for it to dry a bit more before I do the bottom completely, because I don't want the stencil sticking onto this. So I'm just going to wait until this dries more before I do the bottom halves. It just being a little bit patient will make it look better instead of messy if I try to do the bottom part. So